Hello and welcome. I'm Sofiko and this is Creative Minds Speaking, a podcast where I have conversations with creative industry professionals. Bringing into the spotlight those incredible people who are behind the scenes of art and entertainment is the main goal of this podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to chat with an absolute superstar, Dina LaPolt. Dina is the founder of LaPolt Law, a Los Angeles based law firm representing some of the world's top entertainers. She is an expert at solving sophisticated legal and business issues relating to contracts, copyrights, trademarks, rights of publicity, and litigation. LaPolt Law represents a wide range of music creators and celebrities. They worked with Steven Tyler, Cardi B, 21 Savage, just to name a few. LaPolt Law consistently ranks among the top firms in the entertainment industry and is the only law firm of its stature founded and operated by a sole female attorney. Dina LaPolt was most recently honored in Billboard's 2024 Top Music Lawyers list as a 2024 Billboard Women in Music Hall of Fame honoree and is Billboard's very first Top Music Lawyer Power Players Choice. I am absolutely honored to have Dina on the show today. Hello, Dina. Welcome to the podcast.
Wow, that's some introduction. Thank you for having me.
It's all your story, so thank you for everything you've been doing in the music industry so far.
You're welcome.
And my first question is what inspired you to pursue a career in entertainment law? Were there specific events that influenced your decision to specialize in this particular field?
Well, actually, I was a performer and I went to college on a music scholarship. I played guitar. So I had no desire to even go into go into law. But as I was in the music industry as a performer and learning how it all works behind the scenes, I was pretty fascinated about all the business that takes place behind the scenes. And, I definitely had to, as the years went on and I was on tour and getting my degree and, running the concert committee at the college, I learned about, agents and I learned about managers and I learned about business managers. The one thing I did not learn about until I started working for the drummer from Kiss at the time, his name was Eric Carr, was there are music lawyers. And, I was always the business person in the band. Like I was always the person that was the business person. And it just naturally, I gravitated towards that as I was getting older and figured out like that's what I want to do. That's how I did it.
Wow. And how did you get your start in the industry?
Well, honestly, it's not been an easy path. I've had to really hustle and create my own way. In the music business, there's a lot of it's built on relationships, let's be
Mhm.
honest. And I didn't have any relationships when I started except as a performer. Obviously, I knew some of the guys from Kiss and I opened up a few times for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, so I knew that camp, but I didn't really know a lot of the business people at all. So when I first went to law school, I got in to John F. Kennedy School of Law up in the East Bay, which is in Northern California. Right away I started teaching guitar lessons to kids and I formed a band because that's what I knew how to do. I didn't really understand that while I was in law school, I should actually be doing internships with lawyers to learn how to do it. I did end up doing an internship with a music lawyer up in San Francisco. After I studied and took the bar, her name was Dina Zachrin, and in the 3 months that I interned for her, I learned a lot and realized that I probably should have been doing that the entire time I was in law school. Anyway, when I moved to Los Angeles, I didn't have any job prospects. I had no relationships on the business end. For all intents and purposes, it's a industry that is run by men, and there are certain schools that you should be going to, and I didn't go to those schools, so I had a very hard time getting any kind of employment. So I ended up interning for a music lawyer in Century City, but not what I would recommend as a lawyer to do. But I did that, and that's kind of how I learned my chops, interning there for a few years.
Amazing. And can you please share some insights into founding and growth of LaPolt Law? What do you think sets your firm apart from others in the industry?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I come from a performance background, and I think what sets us apart the most is that we only represent talent and executives that work at the companies. Like, we don't represent any of the record companies, any of the publishing companies, any of the streamers, the movie studios. We only represent talent. And I think that that's pretty unique in the entertainment industry. Certainly for someone who owns their own law firm, because you tend to try and get as much business as you can, but I've always focused on representing, the artist, and that's the perspective that I come from, and it's natural for me to, advocate for artists and creatives. I wish I had me when I was a creative.
Yeah,
But so I really really enjoy that. So I think that's what really sets our firm apart from the rest. And the other thing too is I think it's the only firm of its stature that's owned by a sole female attorney. That's also pretty incredible, I think.
it is pretty big, definitely. And it's very inspiring.
Thank you. And I know you and I met too in Cannes when we were at a music business conference many years ago. I think I was speaking there and you were a student, right, at Berkeley School of Music?
Yeah. I was star shocked, to be honest, to meet you in person.
Oh, so sweet. And here we are.
I know. I would never think in 1,000 years that this would happen. I'm so honored, really.
Thank you for asking me.
um, have you always wanted to start your own firm, or it's more of like you saw that nothing similar is happening and you decided, I will start my law firm?
Wow, that's a great question. Everybody asks me, why'd you start your own law firm? And the real answer is completely unfiltered, unedited answer is that nobody wanted me. I mean, it's so funny because I couldn't find a job and I was interning for the music lawyer in Century City and waiting tables to support myself. And one of the clients at the firm was the estate of Tupac Shakur. And I met Afeni Shakur, who I grew up on her teachings because I grew up in upstate New York, and my mother was very, into social justice and all kinds of things like that. And she taught me all about, Afeni Shakur and the Black Panther Party and how they were being unfairly targeted by the government. And, she taught me about all the things that Afeni would do, feeding poor children in the Bronx and all these things. And, so I knew who she was. And I actually was not even a fan of Tupac. I was in law school. My study partner, Lita, was a fan. So I remember when he died, she was so upset she had to leave class. But I grew up on Afeni Shakur. So when I met her, it was really incredible. And I told my mother all about it. It was really such a moment. But she and I connected right away. And I always just worked on all of her stuff at that internship. But she and I had a massive relationship right off the bat, and I had it with her family, and we just, you know, she just encouraged me. She encouraged me, and she kept telling me to open my own law firm, which I thought was crazy because I'd only been practicing law a couple years. And eventually I stopped being an intern, and that firm hired me as an attorney, but I was still struggling. I'd also just gotten sober in 1998, so that was a thing. And she just kept encouraging me and wanting me to open my own firm. And finally, she started telling everybody else. That's what happened. She started calling all these people we did business with, like the record companies, because she had a record company. We had a record company named Interscope Records that put out all Tupac's music. So Fanny actually had an office in that record company where some of her employees would work, that worked on the estate of Tupac. And she started encouraging me and telling everybody at the record company I was opening my own practice. And that's really kind of what happened. that's
Wow.
that's the long story short of it. Actually moved in to the office that she had at Interscope, which was located on the third floor publicity department in Santa Monica. And I moved in there with one of my assistants and my own intern. Well, I looked for office space and I finally found office space in West Hollywood, like probably a month later. And I've been at that place ever since. I've just taken more and more space over the last 2 decades.
This is amazing. It's just another proof how it's very important to have a great support system. And also, this is such a bold statement when you said nobody wanted me, so I started my own firm. I absolutely love it. Um,
Mhm.
did you have, I guess, this is comparing to me to myself, basically. Oftentimes, I feel this imposter syndrome, and I'm
Mm,
guessing that this is something you might have felt as well when you were starting your own company. And as you said, you were
yeah.
practicing law just a couple of years. How did you overcome it at the end to then, all these years later, become one of the greatest attorney in the creative business?
Honestly, I still struggle with it, if you want me to be totally honest,
Hmm.
because, we grow up as women. And as women growing up in the world, we are subconsciously taught that we are second class citizens. Not me. We could grow up in families that encourage us and, parents that are great. But at the end of the day, as young girls, we look around the world, all the presidents and the chairmen and the prime ministers, and most of them are all men. And a lot of the world is run by men. Most of the Fortune 500 companies are run by men. In the music industry, all three major labels are run by men. So this is, we grow up subconsciously learning that, and it's something that we as women always have to struggle to overcome. And certainly, things like predispositioned obstacles really, create somewhat of a hardship that we also have to overcome. Like, for example, I'm just talking about myself growing up in a patriarchal family system where the mayor was a man, the fire chief was a man, the police chief was a man. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, so we'd go to church and the priests were men, the altar boys were men. Subconsciously, this is what I learned. And actually, going to school, I mean, they put jobs on the board back then. Jobs for women were teachers and nurses, and jobs for men were president and fire chief. And I remember sitting there saying, I want to be president. I want to be the fire chief. And these are predispositioned obstacles that we have to focus on, and we have to overcome these predispositioned obstacles. And the great part about that now, which is very different from when I grew up, is now we have social media.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, like a young girl, like even you growing up in Georgia, right? Completely in a complete other country than where America is. You have the wherewithal to contact, power women that resonate with you, and the message that they're saying. You can contact them through Instagram and, Facebook and TikTok and X. Like, you can reach out, and a lot of times these women will see your messages, or like how you and I met. You were a student going to Berkeley School of Music, and you and I met at a music business conference in Cannes, France, which that conference doesn't even happen anymore because of what, the advent of social media and the digital revolution that took over. But for 45 years, that conference was a place where mostly music publishers would gather to share information, and it just created a nexus for everybody in the music industry, artists and agents and labels and producers and songwriters and all kinds of business people would all start going for decades, and it was a place to meet and connect and confer, and you and I got a chance to do that. That was really incredible. So I know, like, this is a long way around your question, but you know, imposter syndrome, I think, lives with every single woman in the world. And that's why it's very important that women have to help each other. Women have to help each other all over the world to bring each other up and encourage each other. Very important.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It's a very beautiful, vulnerable answer to my question. I absolutely agree. And I get a lot of inspirations from women like yourself. And it really, as you said, it doesn't cure an imposter syndrome, but it really helps.
Yeah. We just have to encourage each other, and you have to also get into action. I mean, there's two parts to it. There's the desire to want to be something,
Hmm.
but then there's also putting yourself first and taking action. I mean, this is very important because subconsciously as girls, we see these messages, right? And hopefully now in the world, we grow up where we're encouraged rather than not encouraged. But we still have to overcome those predispositioned obstacles, which means take action. Like, nothing changes if nothing changes. So you could sit there and dream of one day being in the music business and one day doing this or being a politician, or but at the other end is also taking action and putting those steps in place where you can move forward and do those things.
Definitely. Definitely. This is an amazing advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Could you please share with us an example of the most memorable case you worked on so far, and how you navigated it?
I think the thing that was really amazing that I worked on, which was really fun, um, was, when I started representing Dead Mouse, and, he got his trademark in the mouse ears. That was really fun and interesting, because as you can imagine, Disney had an issue with it, but we really worked together, all of us, to overcome that. And it was really such a great learning process for me, learning how trademarks are protected. Certainly in America, there's two types of protections for trademarks in the world. Some countries are first to register, which is how copyrights are. You create a copyright, you register right away, you own it. I mean, the minute it's fixed in a tangible means, it's you own it. You just register to protect it, right? That's how copyrights are all over the world. But trademarks are not like that. Some countries have intent to use, which means you actually have to use the mark in interstate commerce before you're even eligible to register to protect, to own it. So it was a very interesting learning lesson for me that will last me a lifetime. And I just, I really, really love doing that. The other thing that I love doing too is when we made the Tupac Resurrection documentary film. That was incredible, incredible. It was really great, and I ended up, really learning a lot about that too, as far as like how music clearances work and clearing the footage and being on the front lines of doing that. And I was actually, it was so funny, I was actually in Midem in Cannes when I got a phone call from someone who worked at the estate, Molly, to tell me that we had been nominated for an Academy Award back then. It was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. So that was also very, very memorable. I have a lot of memorable parts of my career. That's like what I love so much about it. It's so gratifying. Like for 20 years, I taught a music business class at UCLA extension program. That was incredible. That was incredible. The last several years of the class, I had over 100 people in the class, and they were usually, most of them were people that already worked in the music industry that signed up to take my class to learn about the business. It was
Hmm.
so gratifying. So gratifying. I miss it actually.
Wow, that's incredible. I am sure you had so much to teach your students about. I am not a lawyer, but what it looks to me, sounds to me, is that it's actually a pretty creative field because it's not solid as two plus two is four. Every
Right.
case is
Right.
different, every situation is so different. Would you say that unless you actually actively practice in the law, you'll never learn it? Because in my understanding, even if you go to the best school, to the best of the best law schools, it's just impossible to learn every possible situation, every possible case that can happen to your clients.
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like I'm a business person in the music industry, and we negotiate the deals. So whether they're record deals or publishing deals or merchandising deals or deals doing, having to do with sponsorship and endorsements, like we negotiate all of those deals. And you have to learn, obviously, there's laws, right? There's trademark laws, there's copyright laws. Some states here have rights of publicity laws, like California. So all of those things come into play when you're negotiating these deals, which is very important. But literally, we have industry precedent and we have industry custom. And that's the most important thing in this industry is understanding and learning how the business works and what the deal points are in the contracts and being able to articulate
Hmm.
the sophisticated complexities of those deal points. Because the music industry, I feel like out of all entertainment sectors, the music industry is probably the hardest. It's probably the hardest. It's just very complicated.
It is. It sounds very complicated.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. You are known for advocating for artists' rights.
Yeah.
What are some of the key issues artists face today, and what legal protections do you believe are still needed?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think that, with what's happening now is we have another disruptor in the music business, and it is called artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And because of this, a lot of companies are scaling back. And we know this when, record companies, which are literally the only companies in the world to put up any risk money, meaning that they will sign artists and invest millions of dollars in those artists to try and break their careers. And, sometimes it doesn't work and that money is not realized for either the record company or the artist. But when the record companies start scaling back and laying off people, and the monies that they're offering the artists and the deals start tightening up, we know that we're going into a bit of a recession in the
Hmm.
music industry. That's just precedent. And we are seeing this with AI. The last time we had a disruptor in the music industry was Napster, right? And then we figured out all these ways to move from selling CDs to, streaming music. And that's where we are. But it took almost 15, 20 years to really, transition into the digital realm. And, it took a lot of new laws being passed here in America, the Music Modernization Act, right? There was a lot of things that needed to happen before the music industry was a healthy ecosystem again. Well, we're facing the same issues with artificial intelligence. So here in America, we have a couple of bills that we've been trying to work on in Congress. One of which is the No Frauds AI Act, which would really be incredible if that bill was passed, which would create a federal right in voice and likeness. So here we do not have a federal right of publicity. We don't. So if someone is using the commercial image of one of our clients, we can stop them in various ways. Obviously, if they're using it for commercial purposes, we can go to the company that's monetizing that. We could pull that down. We could file a lawsuit. We could allege all these different, things like fraud in the inducement, like all these different actions, because it's fraud if your company, if your artist hasn't approved it. However, what would make it much, much easier if there was a federal statutory right of publicity. Because that way, just like copyrights and trademarks, there's federal laws and there's statutory damages if you violate those laws. If we had the same type of statutory protections for rights of publicity that we have for recordings and trademarks and musical compositions, it would really revolutionize the way creators can control the artificial intelligence stuff that's happening right now. It's very scary.
It is. So, would you say that the entertainment law is not really adapting quickly enough with all the technological advancements?
Well, it's not that it's not adapting quickly enough. It's that we are trying to get ahead of it, which
Mm-hmm.
we have learned from the whole Napster, Spotify situation. You can't fight it. Okay. So the biggest mistake the music business made when Napster came onto the scene many, many years ago is the music industry tried to fight it. And that was a massive mistake. Instead of embracing the technology and figuring out how we can make it all work, they fought it because it was an avalanche coming. And you can't fight it when you see it. When you see the tsunami coming, you don't fight it. You have to figure out how to embrace it and work with it, and what they did is they were fighting it. And we can't fight the AI thing. I mean, Universal is fighting it with, one of a lawsuit that they filed, but mostly, what we're doing is trying to get ahead of it. Um, the Copyright Office here in America actually put out a call for comments last year. They wanted to know what the music industry thought about AI and if there's anything that they should be doing. And we collectively said the Copyright Office should not, get involved in anything legislatively because we feel as if creators are using generative AI, that they're allowed to do that, much like they use Pro Tools and, Ableton as technologies to create
Mm-hmm.
music. They also use some AI platforms to create music, and it's their copyrights and it should be fully protected. So we believe that. However, these AI companies that are ingesting our clients' material, and then they're actually using that institutional knowledge of our clients' copyrights and images, and they're creating, all this artificial intelligence as that use our clients' copyrights as a basis for the creation. That I firmly believe there needs to be voluntary licensing for that. Firmly
Mm-hmm.
believe that. So we definitely have to get ahead of it. And, we've been working behind the scenes and trying to get ahead of it, and obviously trying to get some legislation happening here. But it's a big issue.
It is. It sounds quite tricky. Thank you for sharing. And
Hmm.
if we go to back to the artists, and specifically artists who are just in the beginning of their careers, um, when they are approached, for example, by labels and they are starting negotiating, do you have any advice on how to go about it? Specifically, again, when we talk about just starting artists, because it feels like when you have some kind of leverage, it's easier to negotiate a better contract for yourself. But when you're
Right.
just in the beginning of your career, it feels like there is not so much leverage. How to not end up in some horrible contract?
You know what? It's a great question. And again, thank God we have all the social media, right? Because it gives artists a lot of leverage. I mean, think about it. You have these artists like Benson Boone and, Jax. They create this, movement on TikTok, and then they get the attention of all these record companies and publishers that want to put their music out. And that's incredible. But for sure, artists should not be signing any kind of contracts. Artists or songwriters or any kind of talent should not be signing contracts unless they get a real entertainment lawyer to look at it. And sometimes it's hard to get that. But again, with the internet and with social media, you could reach out to people. I mean, no matter where you are in the world, you can Google who are the big music lawyers in my country, and so many names will pop up. And a lot of times on the website, there's a phone number, there's an email, so you can reach out like that. You could follow certain lawyers on social media, send them direct messages, say, I'm a big music artist on TikTok, and I have, X amount of views, and all these record companies are sending me messages wanting to meet with me and send me contracts. Is this something you can help me with? And if that lawyer can't help because they're too busy, they will always refer some friends. So it really is a great time for creatives. I mean, definitely, because they could really create a lot of leverage for themselves in the beginning,
Hmm.
but they should definitely have a music lawyer or an entertainment lawyer look at their stuff. A lot of artists make the mistake of just signing something that they get because they feel like they need that person or that company, and they don't feel like they have a lot of leverage. But I can tell you this, they always regret it, especially if that artist takes off. They
Hmm.
always regret it. It takes lots and lots and lots of effort, sometimes lots of money and litigation to get that artist out of the contract.
Hmm.
It's a lot.
And when you are being approached by new clients, what are your markers when deciding if you'll be working with this particular client or case or not?
Well, a lot of times we get referrals from people that we work with now. So whether it's other artists, like I've gotten clients from other artists that have referred me artists, like so that's a big source of how you get referred. Business people that you work with, whether it's agents or managers or business managers, they refer people to you and you refer people to them. And that's how you get most of the business comes as you get well known. But also, sometimes, you'll get an artist that'll reach out to you on social media, and what they're doing is just very much resonating with you, very much resonate. And sometimes that happens, and I just, want to be involved with that person. um, because I love what they do, or sometimes I will see an artist in another situation. Like, for example, when Steven Tyler was a judge on American Idol, one of the artists that was performing on Idol was Haley Reinhart. And I just loved her voice. I loved her sound. So did Steven. And I just always I wanted to work with her. And I'm still working with her to this day because she just is an authentic, amazing artist. So it just happens. And sometimes, if I'm too busy, I'll refer somebody. I'll bring in a firm that I really like, or that I think that would resonate with that particular artist. There's just various ways. So
Hmm.
that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Incredible. What advice would you give to young lawyers who aspire to work in entertainment law?
The first advice I would give them is that they should and they must intern in the music business while they're in law school. They do not want to do what I did, which is not have any experience in law school. So by the time you get out of law school and you've passed the bar, you're interning. That's what I did. That's not good. Okay? So I think the best thing they could do is intern at music companies while they're in law school to get all of that experience, because that will just make them more desirable and they will have more of a competitive edge when they finally do take and pass the bar exam. They'll be able to be in the job pool getting jobs, because that's the thing. As law firms and companies, they do not want to hire lawyers that have zero experience. They don't want to do that. So it's very important that you get experience. And I wish that someone would have told me that when I went to law school. But look, I don't regret any part of my past at all. I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons from all the hardships that I have been through. I definitely would not be where I am today if I didn't have those obstacles in my way that I had to overcome, because it just gave me a lot of resilience. And, I was able to, really get a, tough skin because of it. But definitely interning for music companies, 100%.
And does your company have internship programs in case somebody is listening to the podcast now and thinking of applying? Is it
Yeah, we
possible?
do. We do, and it's so different now. When I was an intern, I didn't get paid. Okay, I mean it's very different now. Like here in California, we have laws. You can't work. You know, Companies are prohibited from hiring people to work for free. Like you can't make someone work for free here. When I was coming up, I had to work for free. I mean, I was literally waiting tables, at night to support myself because I was working for free. I was interning and I didn't even have my parking paid for. I had to park at the mall and walk, 6 blocks because I'd get 3 hours free if I parked at the mall. So it would only cost me $11 a day to go to work. So now people pay, and that's great. And we do. We always have law student interns. We always have law student interns. It's a very important part of my life is to give back. I love giving back. I love teaching people. I love giving people a chance, especially women, especially people of color. I love that. So we always have interns year round, and it's important to my culture at the firm, and it's important to me.
I love to hear that. This is so incredible. And yeah, I also had unpaid internship. It's really not the best feeling, and I wish they were prohibited everywhere, not just in California.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you stay motivated throughout the years?
Oh my God, what a great question. That to stay motivated throughout the years, you always have to be changing it up.
Hmm.
Like, recently, the past 2 years, we started a film and TV division. So that keeps me motivated. So now not only are we doing music and sponsorships, endorsements, fashion, stuff like that, but we're also doing film and TV. So we represent talent. And that's very gratifying. It's very fun because it gives me the ability to learn something new. Every time I learn something new, I just love it. I'm a seeker of information. I'm a Gemini, so I love to learn new stuff. So that's been a very big, motivation for me. The other thing is too, clients that are doing things that I love, it just motivates me. Like Mary J. Blige, who has her Strength of a Woman festival with the summit. It's very motivating, and I love that. And everything that my clients, are doing, like 21 Savage now has his green card, so he could finally leave the U.S. and play outside the country, and I just love that. I was recently in Canada with him, and that was very meaningful to me. So my clients give me so much motivation. I mean, so much motivation. It just really inspires me. And the other thing I'm doing too is I'm actually in the middle of writing a motivational book. I was a publisher reached out to me, Berman Books Media reached out to me and pitched me on writing a motivational book last year. And I really was like, huh? I mean, I never even thought about it. But I got on the Zoom with the owner of the company, and he was telling me the statistics are crazy. 98% of all motivational books are read by women, and 80% of them are written by men. And he told me that he's been following a bunch of women in different professions, science, media, all the entertainment, legal, and he's been following women, and some of them he's published and some of them he's not publishing. But he reached out to me and he said, I just really would love to publish your book, and so we're in the middle of it, and it's really, really gratifying, and it's very motivating, because if I can help somebody, especially a woman, it helps me more.
This is incredible. I had no idea, of course, that you're working on this book right now, but I would absolutely love to get a copy as soon as it's out.
Yeah, it's called Street Smart: Tips to Succeeding in a Man's World.
Incredible. I also love that we are recording the podcast in the Gemini season.
Yes, we are.
Incredible,
Oh,
incredible. Thank you for sharing.
you're so welcome.
What are your life highlights?
I have a lot of highlights. The biggest highlight of my life are my twin boys. That is the biggest highlight of my entire life, is my twins, Buddy and Wilson. They're 11 years old. And that is for sure the biggest highlight of my life. Some of my other massive highlights, of course, is representing the Tupac Shakur estate. That was a huge highlight. And now I work with them on the creative basis. I am producing a Fanny Shakur's life story. I love that. Um, opening my own law firm is a highlight. Getting sober was a highlight. I mean, 26 years ago, I got sober. That is a highlight. Being married to an amazing woman for 18 years. We're not married anymore, but we were married for a long time, and she's still very, very dear to me. That's a massive highlight. Making my mother proud and happy before she passed away, that is a massive highlight. I mean, when I had my alcohol addiction, I think my mother was the most traumatized by my alcohol addiction. And she was always so worried about me, especially also I had a learning disability growing up. And, my mother only wanted her kids to be happy and healthy. So when my mother passed away in December 2022, she knew that I was really happy and really healthy, and that is a massive highlight. Um, my relationship with my brother and sister is a massive highlight. I just have so many blessings in my life. I could sit here and talk for hours about the gratitude I have for my life. But I know we're out of time. But thank you for asking me that question.
This is so beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing such personal moments from your life with us.
You're welcome.
What would you say is your personal definition of success?
Just being happy. If you're happy and you're healthy and you're doing what you love, then you're good. That's really what it's all about. I always say the universe has three answers for me: yes, not at this time, or I have something better in store for you. And sometimes you just got to let go and let God, and just have faith. And the hardest part is to have faith, especially when things aren't going your way. But that's when you have to have the most faith. You always have to know, as long as you're always doing the right thing, earning an honest living, being honest with yourself, treating people good, having ethics, you're going to be okay. One day at a time. That's the premise of Reiki, always leading an honest life. Never be, not, we will not be angry for today. We will not worry today. We will always respect our elders and our mentors and our parents. It's just such a very important part, because the universe loves that. When you're a good person with good ethics, rich things happen to you, because the universe loves that. The universe does not like liars. They do not like unethical people.
This is absolutely beautiful. I think I will listen on repeat this answer on my horrible bad days because
Oh,
because sometimes it feels like you're a good person, you're doing good things, and things are just not happening for you. But I absolutely love how you said that the universe has three answers for you.
remember also, Safiko, whatever is for you will not pass you by.
Hmm.
But the opposite is also true. Whatever is not for you will pass you by. And it's hard to just be in the flow and learn these lessons. And sometimes, you get frustrated or you get discouraged, but you just got to stay positive. Stay positive. Act as if the world is beautiful.
It is. Thank you so much. Beautiful answer.
Yeah.
We will be slowly wrapping up the podcast. And at the end of the podcast, I ask these three short questions, everybody. One of them is, do you have any book, movie, and song recommendations for our listeners?
I all the Maya Angelou books I love, you know, all of them. So that's important. But, one of the books that resonated with me a lot was Never Wrestle with a Pig by Mark McCormick. Mark McCormick was a sports agent. And ironically, I'm not a sports person, but this book always resonated with me. The full title of the book is Never Wrestle with a Pig because only you both get dirty and only the pig has fun. That's the full title of the book. And he would just go through all these lessons and then talk about all these things that he would say to do, and then the things that he learned and the lessons that he learned. And that's a lot of how my motivational book is. Like, I have 10 chapters of my book, and it's all my personal stories. Like, the first chapter is overcoming predispositioned obstacles, so that's all my stories. And how, the second chapter is put yourself first. Third chapter is take action. Fourth chapter, recognize your triggers and change your patterns. So that's a great book to get. Also, if you really want a cutthroat shark book, get 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I mean, you
Ooh,
can't practice all those laws because you'd be a pretty awful person. But those laws, those different 48 laws apply throughout your life at different times.
okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Uh, what are your hidden talents?
I think my biggest talent is my emotional intelligence.
Mm,
I mean, that has really what's carried me so far in my life is my emotional intelligence and my intuition. And when you could really get clear about the things that you want and the things that make you happy, you can make some really great decisions. Sometimes the decisions you make will be painful, but you got to do it if you're going to take care of yourself.
mhm.
So, but that I think is a big, big talent of mine.
It definitely is. And you are a role model for so many, including myself. Who would you say are your role models?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, there was, two lawyers, Rosemary Carroll and Jill Berliner, both practicing today. They've been role models of mine. Um, and a lot of my peers are my role models now, like, you know, Jennifer Justice, who has a great podcast called The Justice Department. She's my role model. Um, Michelle Obama's my role model, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. These are my role models. I have a lot of different role models right now. Lou Taylor's my role model, big business manager. Just I look for people that are actually getting through life and overcoming things. I just love that about people. So I just never stop finding my role models. I think it's really important.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Dina, for being on the show, for spending this hour with me today. I absolutely love this episode. I absolutely love how personal it is. And at the same time, thank you so much for sharing this amount of insights and knowledge with me and everybody who will be listening. I am, as I already said, absolutely honored to talk with you today. And really, thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.